Kay Morrison, you're standing in the by-election here in the ward of Mark Hall. Can we just go back last month? It seems like a million years ago. Standing in the local elections, and you stood in the... Were you surprised to lose?
Yes. Yes is the answer. Of course, no candidate with any sense at all ever takes anything for granted. I certainly don't take a single vote for granted, but I certainly didn't think that we would lose to the extent that we did. And of course, we are now talking about why that happened, how it happened, and what we need to do now.
Because people can go around the country, can't they? Whether you look at actually Labour taking Worthing or Lib Dems the other day winning Amersham and Chesham. Do you think just things are very volatile politically at the moment?
Yes, they certainly seem to be. There's a definite unpredictability in the air. So back to what I was saying just now, I don't think we can take anything for granted, including during this campaign. So I'm fighting for every single vote. I also think that we don't talk enough about what Labour achieved in Harlow in the last administration, the one that existed until the 6th of May. And I'm not going to go over a long list of all the things that were done, but there are lots of them, lots of things that we should be feeling proud of. Building houses, I've mentioned this quite a few times, refurbishing kitchens, bathrooms in council houses. We have improved Moot House. We've introduced parking improvements. We've really started to grapple properly with that issue. We've even forced the Conservatives to start repairing our roads. And that took, I know it sounds ridiculous, but it took the threat of legal action before they would actually do something about that. It is their responsibility. But for some reason, they seem to be held or sort of seized by some unusual form of inertia. They did nothing about the roads until we started to challenge them. And at last that's starting to happen. And not everybody knows this. In 2019, the work began on a bid for funding to improve the town centre, the bus station, and quite a number of other things. And that was really quite a complex piece of work, which has been successful. The funding has been granted as a result of that Labour Council's work having started. So £23.7 million coming to Harlow. But I've noticed, and you'll be surprised by this as well, that some of the Conservatives are claiming this as though it is completely and only their victory, their success. Isn't that bizarre?
Probably because you all let them claim these victories, and in May some would say. But now, are you thumping on the here we are in Mark Hall, we're in Broomfield, near Stackfield, Mark Hall Moors. Are you now knocking on these doors and your colleagues, promoting Labour more than maybe you did in April?
Yes, definitely we are. So when I talk to people, I talk to them straight. I don't tell them any lies. As you will know, Labour's belief is for the many, not the few. And incidentally, for me, that's not just human beings, that's other living things, green space, all of that sort of thing. Those are all included in the for the many. So when I talk to people, I'm talking about what we can do for them, for their community, for their environment, not talking about how I can benefit my mates. No.
But there's one thing Labour might have failed to speak to people in Harlow over the decades is about aspiration. Aspirational people sometimes feel that Labour doesn't speak for them. And I think, do you think that's still a concern, or do you think that's a bit of an abstract idea?
I'm not sure that people believe that now. Or maybe they do, but they haven't made it clear to me. I'll certainly think about that. Of course I will. But I think that most people who support Labour, who would consider voting for us, see Labour as a very broad church, and a party that is concerned about improving life for everybody. We're interested in businesses, local businesses, any kind of business, because we realise that we have to make some money. People need jobs, people need to work. It's quite important to be able to pay the bills, as well as all the other things that we are interested in that we keep talking about.
You mentioned that there was a lot of upset about business grants, rightly or wrongly, and again,
Yes.
that's something that you need. Do you think Labour in Harlow need to be more friendlier to businesses?
I wasn't aware that we were unfriendly to business. I'm not trying to paper up or over any cracks. I really wasn't aware that that was the case. Maybe though we could have been a lot more explicit about what we were doing for businesses, large and small, tiny, wee, whatever size they happen to be. And possibly this goes back to something that we've thought about quite a lot. We don't talk enough about what we do, what we have done, what has been done by Labour for Harlow. For example, sometimes voters think that Labour solely is responsible for anything that's wrong with the town. And that includes various projects such as Terminus House, which is certainly not our idea or our decision and was at that time out of our control. It's certainly not something that we approve of. We want decent housing, decent houses for families, for people, for individuals, a decent life and a decent chance for everybody.
Just a final thing, because it is important in last couple of weeks, maybe the last couple of years, is the river crossing. Have you been down and spoken to the people down the store?
Yes.
And what's your impressions and how do you think it could impact on Harlow life?
Yes, I have been down there. I spent several hours down there walking around that site, and I would advise anybody who is interested in the issue to do something similar. They may not have as much time to spend, but it gives a proper sense of the sheer scale of that initiative. Okay, I acknowledge that people need houses. Of course they do, and they need to be able to get to and from their houses, their homes. So we need roads or something very like those. But this is the 21st century. People like David Attenborough and Chris Packham and quite a number of other people have spent their lives trying to wake us up, to raise our awareness of what we have already done to the environment, to this planet. I have been involved in environmental organisations for quite a while. I've been a member of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, for most of my life. That's quite a while, actually. So in other words, this is not new to me. And the whole idea of damaging such a precious environment, that ecosystem, quite a number of species, some of them protected. Bats, there are probably bat colonies there, at least one I would have thought. There are otters, there are lots of other creatures. And there are human beings living there, in that space. So I want those who have been thinking about this, and I realise that that bridge, it's not a new idea. People have been talking about it for years, I understand, in Harlow. But we know a lot more now, possibly than we did some years ago. We know about the damage that we can do, and we know that sometimes, quite often, that damage is irreversible. We don't want this on our consciences. We don't. So we need to take time, and we need to work through the various impact assessments, and we need everybody who's involved to be participants. I don't want this just to be imposed on people. I know that, during the various lockdowns, things have happened, decisions have been taken. People haven't necessarily been aware of them. And that does sometimes happen in local government. But that's a very bad idea, especially when it comes to something like this, to the bridge. So I'm begging for people to slow down, think it through, be a bit more creative. Think about the lives that are at stake here, not just human lives.